But it's time for us to talk about something significantly more creepy. Yes, more creepy than Joe Biden. And that is the socialist YouTuber Vaush. Let's just start, Hannah. This guy, he's like really big on YouTube and on social platforms. He's got like millions of subscribers or whatever. He's like what I guess what they call like a dirtbag leftist. So he's like to the left of Bernie, hardcore, like, I don't think he's a literal communist, but I think he's very openly socialist. But then he's like weirdly extreme and offensive and anti-PC, but on the left. And you actually had a run-in with this dude recently, and I just want to know, tell us what happened with you and Spike Cohen and Vaush at the Libertarian Party of Texas.
There's a lot going on here, and I think it's time we address it on the podcast because I'm really tired of people tagging me, and I'm going to set the narrative straight here. So like I said earlier in the episode, I'm doing a ton of LP conventions right now. All the state parties are having their conventions, and then they'll get together for the big national convention later on this year. So I've been doing the rounds, making speeches, and Texas booked me a couple months ago to come in and do their conference, which will be in April. I'm really excited for it. And this was in the midst of my very busy travel schedule that I had January and February. You remember I literally was not home for a single full week for 2 months. So it was very, very busy. I felt very underwater, and I got a message asking me to do the convention and basically saying that they wanted me to debate this guy Vaush. Now, I don't watch YouTube. I'm not a YouTuber, really. I mean, I'm on YouTube, like, with my own content, but I'm really not, like, a user. So I've never seen anything of Vaush's at this time. All I know is that, like, he has a lot of followers and that he's a socialist, but he, like, calls himself, like, a libertarian socialist or something like that, which I kind of sort of know what that means. Like, there's this school of thought in libertarianism where if you want to form your own communes and have, co-ops and live under like a socialist type system voluntarily, aside from government force, not forcing anybody else to participate, that is a theory that could exist under libertarianism. And I guess I agree if that's what you want to do, like, cool. Won't work, but like, have at it, as long as you're not trying to force other people in. So I kind of assumed he was in that camp, but either way, from my understanding, they wanted me to debate capitalism with this guy. I said yes, kept it moving. After they publicly announced the event while I was on the road, I was tagged in a lot of backlash, mostly directed at the party, not at me in particular, but people were pretty outraged that the Texas party had invited Vaush to speak at the convention, and a lot of people felt very strongly that the Libertarian Party shouldn't be platforming, if you will, people of his mindset. But most people were less concerned with the fact that he is a proclaimed socialist, and a lot more people seem to be upset about his very seedy behavior online and some very problematic statements he's made. I saw a lot of people saying that that he had made statements in support, or at least in defense of, like, child porn. And so that was concerning to me. When this all went down, I really was so busy, I did not have time to, like, handle it, right? And so I'm getting tagged on all these things. I had members of the party calling me, like, what do you want to do? Was this your idea? Did you set up this debate? Are you going to be upset if we take it away? And I'm like, I had nothing to do with any of this. I literally just said yes, that I would come debate this guy. I can wipe the floor with a socialist any day, all day. Like, let's go. So thankfully Spike stepped in the midst of it all. And this is, I mean, you know this about Spike. Spike is like a true leader, and Spike is a true leader behind the scenes as much as he is publicly. And I think he's really somebody who thinks very deeply about the role that he has in our party and in our movement. And he basically asked how I wanted to handle it. And at this point I was like, if this guy, and I don't have time to like go validate this or not, right? I'm out traveling and speaking in the midst of this. But if this guy has made these kinds of statements, then I do not want to use my brand and my name that I have cultivated over a decade to participate in something with him, right? There are plenty of socialists I can debate. I see no point in me needing to debate somebody who's making these kinds of statements online. And I don't think it's something our party, and I say our party, I'm not really technically a member of the Libertarian Party, but the movement, I don't think it's something we should be elevating. I think that for me, working in politics, I'm a big believer in respectability politics. I know it matters, and you don't have to like that fact, but being professional, showing up, portraying yourselves as serious adults in the room is something the LP has not always been great at. And I've been very, very critical about that in the past, that we need to put people forward who have the right character and who can actually lead in a respectable way.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Your critic's first response will be, though, I thought you didn't support cancel culture, Hannah.
And I don't think we do, because what Spike and I talked about, I told Spike I would love for him to handle it, that I didn't have time, and that I really just kind of felt like blindsided by a lot of this, and he took over. He then went to the party and he basically said that they could do whatever they wanted, that he simply was going to remove himself from the event. So nobody canceled Vaush. We didn't come out and slam Vaush. I didn't go after YouTube and try to get him taken down. This is the first time I'm even really publicly speaking about it. Well, I tweeted about it this week, but I don't think that's cancel culture. I think that is saying I'm not going to use my brand and damage my reputation by being in association with this person where I get no benefit. It does nothing for me. It does not help me reach new people. It does not help me. I don't even get to refute the nasty things he said online along some of these other, topics, right? That's not even the space for that. It wasn't an environment I wanted to put myself in. And so basically, this is how free markets work. It's not cancel culture to say, I'm going to opt out if this is what's going on here. And what happened is the party thought Spike and I were more valuable speakers, and they picked us. So it's as simple as that. They thought we'd bring in more money. They thought we'd bring in more people, and they were right. And so Spike and I are going to be at the convention, and we're happy to do it. But I think it's important to hash this out, because I then saw a lot of people, particularly left-leaning libertarians, who were mad about Vaush's removal and who were attacking Spike, which I found outrageous. I think Spike handled himself in that situation with the utmost amount of principle. I think he did everything I would hope to see a leader do, and I personally felt very supported by him in that moment. And so I appreciate it. I also appreciate many people within the LP Texas party leadership who were upset that he had been invited and who also went to bat over this, because I did hear from several of them as well. So as a whole, I don't think it's cancel culture. It's simply saying we are not going to associate our brands with you and hurt a brand that we're trying to build, whether that's my independent brand or that's the Libertarian Party's brand. And I think that that's exactly the kind of critical thinking that we need more of in this movement, because those kinds of associations, making those kinds of decisions, have real impacts, and they really do undermine credibility. And after all this went down, I actually did do some digging into Vaush's statements and some things that he has said. And I guess we'll link these, but I found one where he said, after I kill the capitalists, I bleep their neglected spouse on top of their corpse, and then the neglected children.
Oh
now,
my God.
I don't know what context that's in, and I don't freaking care. What the heck is wrong with this person? I then also found a YouTube video where he says, I've yet to hear a convincing moral or legal argument as to why possession of child porn should be illegal.
Oh my gosh. Ugh.
Yeah, so really gross. And I saw people trying to defend this and be like, those were taken out of context. What context? What context is that ever excusable or okay? You can be taken out of context, but you have to say some really, really messed up things to get there, right? I think it's inexcusable. I think it's really bizarre that people were upset that this person was removed.
And then the thing is, and we will put a link to the receipts on this in the description, but so he has this long history of quasi pro bestiality and pro pedophilia stuff too, and it's but that's not it. The other day he was trending on Twitter for what he said about J.K. Rowling, who we have discussed on the podcast before. And I don't really care whether you are pro-trans or skeptical of the trans movement, whether you think that J.K. Rowling is completely correct with her concerns about transgenderism in conflict with women's rights, or whether you think she's totally wrong. Vaush went viral the other day for what he said about her, and she responded, first of all, too. He wrote, all J.K. Rowling had to do was shut the bleep up, and she could have been uncritically beloved for a century. Women be quieter and start apologizing challenge. Hannah, your reaction.
Yeah, I felt very validated when I saw this go down, and was really glad that Spike and I chose to take the route that we took. And I think that I think it's really gross, and I really don't know how he ever got associated with the movement, but I think it's right that we cut ties with him and let him be on his merry way. And I'm not again, like, I'm not trying to even get into a huge fight with Vaush. I just don't know why we would associate with him. There are plenty of socialists who I think actually have genuinely held beliefs, right? I think they're genuinely wrong, but they are people of character, people who mean well, people who are authentic, and people who I think could have intellectually honest debates. And if we want to do that, absolutely, because it's important to have debates on some of these topics. But what's not up for debate are basic human rights. What's not up for debate is how we allow ourselves to be treated. I personally have a very strong rule for social media, for my in-person interactions. I do not let people around me who are disrespectful to me or others. I regularly remove people from my Facebook because they're talking terribly to people on my Facebook. I don't stand for it. I won't have that kind of creature, that kind of social media presence or that kind of environment around me. And as a whole, I end up attracting a lot more people to these spaces that I'm in because very few people want to be around people who speak like this or who behave like this. And so I think gatekeeping is important. I think we've seen what happens when you don't gatekeep with the GOP and the rise of the alt-right and some of the cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs they have running around in their party these days. So I think that this is exactly the kind of decisions we should be making. And as a whole, I'm pretty proud of the people who were involved in this and the decisions we went with. So that's the tea.
Well, and I also want to read J.K. Rowling's response to Vaush because I thought it said it all. She wrote, "What you and your ilk fail to appreciate is how tediously familiar I find your tactics. I had a violent ex-husband who used to tell me life would be great if only I'd comply, but you're making the same mistake he did. Women like me can't be bullied out of resistance."
Good for her. Good for her.
And I also have a bit of a personal connection to this because back when I was working with Rightly, I actually did a debate with Vaush about capitalism and Jeff Bezos and about worker co-ops and everything. And it was an okay conversation. But this was before the J.K. Rowling thing. And also I wasn't aware of this like seedy, dark history and stuff. And I'm conflicted on it because on one hand, I see value in debating people, even bad people, if you're going to be challenging their ideas. But there does have to be a line where some people are just outside the Overton window of like association or legitimizing at all. And I think that when you get into like pro bestiality or pro child abuse positions, that's got to be too far in my book. So I completely understand the decision you guys made, but I'm glad that we've taken the time to clarify it and talk about it, and yeah.
And that's that.